Are you guys ready to create your project story video? Well, get on in here. Hey guys, let's talk about reverse engineering, because reverse engineering is a huge part of how Colaberry helps accelerate your learning. So what is reverse engineering? The definition is examine the construction or composition of another manufacturer's product in order to create a duplicate or similar product. So it's about taking something, looking at the inner workings, maybe cracking it open, looking at how it works, how it's built, all of the mechanisms that are involved, and then taking that information and replicating it, okay? You have the solution in front of you. Now you have to take it apart, analyze it, understand it, and then with that, you can produce something similar or even better. Why is reverse engineering so important? Is because it creates self-sufficiency. Let me explain. When you get onto your job, about 90% of the information and the questions that you'll have, how are you going to answer them? Google, okay? 90%. And the way you do that is you reverse engineer the solutions that you found and incorporate them in your product. Okay, for example, if you are building a dashboard or some type of ETL package and there was a part of the code where you got stuck on, what would you do? You go Google, SQL, Trigger, whatever the case may be, whatever you're searching, you want to search it. And you want to find someone who's been in a similar situation. You're not going to get the same exact, oh, I was using the same version, same everything, same conditions. That won't happen, okay? Instead, you'll find someone who's been through a similar situation. Then you take that, you analyze it, you figure out what their solution is, okay? Look at the inner workings of them, and then you take it and then you apply it to your project, okay? So you find what could be a solution in someone else's project, understand it enough to be able to transfer that solution to your project, okay? That is reverse engineering, and you will do that every single day of your new career, okay? So that's why it's important that you understand how to reverse engineer. So my next question is, can you reverse engineer a person? Not like a clone or anything like that, although they are cloning people, but I'm thinking more like a developer, BI developer, data analyst, whatever, you know, the range of positions that we have. The answer is yes, because that's what we do, okay? Is we build you, we're helping to build you into the model developer, okay? So what does it take to be a good developer? Well, good communication skills, okay? Works well with others, emotionally intelligent, not a quitter, has grit, good problem solver, okay? Experienced and self-sufficient, okay? And I'm going to give you two examples on the ones I have in purple behind me: good communication skills and experience. I'm going to show how we use reverse engineering to enhance those skills. So let's take the video feedback system. Everyone's familiar with that. What we're doing is we're showing you, we're breaking apart, we're showing you, what does a developer sound like? What's their lingo? How do the concepts roll off their tongue? How do they respond to things? Okay? And then when you get that information and you watch multiple videos, what are you doing? You're dissecting it. You're understanding the inner workings. Okay? You're figuring out how a developer talks, their lingo, how they roll, how things roll off their tongue, all of those. And so when you reverse engineer, you actually will help produce better communication skills. So we're using the reverse engineer to improve your communication skills. Fascinating, I know. We also use the same thing for your project, okay? The whole center of excellence is built for you to get information from different projects, okay? How do you create experience? That's a tricky question, right? How do you create experience? Because most people just experience, right? But how do you accelerate experience, I should say, all right? You get experience by going through experiences, okay? So if we can increase your experiences, then we can increase your experience. Therefore, when you're building your project and you're looking at other projects, looking at how they built things, looking at the step-by-step instructions, now you're seeing what an experience project looks like. If you read through the critiques, you can see what not to do. Okay, once you understand what all not to do, or what a bad report looks like, then you can understand what a good report looks like. And we can accelerate it by putting that in front of you, putting the solution in front of you, letting you know what looks good, what doesn't look good, and then you take that information and you're reverse engineering it to learn it at a faster rate. All right, so now that you understand or you got an idea of how we do it, now we're going to apply this same reverse engineering in order to have you create an awesome presentation, okay? Now, I call this Operation Rockstar. Why? Because creating a presentation, listen, all of the skills that you guys have coming out of this program, I'm telling you, you could never accomplish it in such a short time. Okay, even if I put you to work in the field, you still wouldn't get as much information as you guys have gotten. Okay, trust me on that one. I know what an experienced developer looks like. Okay, I know what they sound like. I know how they breathe. I know how they look. Okay, that's why this program was built from an experienced developer back. Okay, so we're going to use that same concept to help you produce a great video, because that's the last thing you need, guys. You got all of the pieces. Now, you know, communication, I always tell you, that's the biggest reason you'll get your job. You pull off this presentation, the skill set that it takes is just like, it doesn't happen. And what we're going to do is we're going to use reverse engineering to make sure that everybody that comes through this program can reverse engineer them an awesome presentation, okay? And of course, I'm gonna be the leading factor in that. The general has to be the one to lead by example. So this is what we're gonna do, all right? So you're gonna watch a presentation. Yes, me. I actually went into the CAP competition and I performed myself. I wanted to see better videos. I wanted to see better storytelling. I wasn't able to get that with just the storyteller system, okay? So I said, okay, I set it out there, it didn't work. Now I'm gonna have to do it. Okay, so I'm leading by example. I did my presentation. You guys are gonna watch the presentation, and then after that, I'm gonna come back and explain how exactly I analyze the storytelling system to create my project, the project that you guys just watched me perform. Okay. And so basically, I'm giving you the inner workings of how to take your data, create a great project. I'm showing you the inner workings so you can understand it, dissect it, and then produce your own. Okay. So after this video is over, you should be in a position to create your own story from your own project in which you came up with the data set. This is your project. I'm going to teach you how to reverse engineer creating a good story for that project. Operation Rockstar. See you after the video. The project that I'm going to be presenting tonight is a sales dashboard. Everybody knows sales runs the world. And here's my story. Jake's manager told Jake, you need to be so focused that if you were driving 80 miles per hour with the window down, all you should hear is your heartbeat. It was at this moment Jake knew wait a minute. How did we get here? Let's rewind 48 hours. Let's meet Jake. Jake is a recent graduate from Colaberry. He's now working as a consultant at a mid-sized data consulting firm. And there's one more thing that you should know about Jake. Jake represents you in this story. That's right. Everyone on this call attending Colaberry, Jake is you. So go ahead and climb in your chair and assume the position. Jake's now a data analyst and has been working at his consulting firm about 3 weeks. Things were going well. He had a couple of deliverables, and his manager seemed to be impressed with his work. Jake was so stoked about his new job. Before Colaberry, he was a teacher. And with this new job, he almost doubled his income. Jake was focused, but couldn't help but daydream about his paycheck and all the things he would purchase with his newfound surplus of money. While Jake was daydreaming about a generational wealth, out of nowhere, his boss pops up behind him. Jake, we need to talk. Meet me in my office. Jake didn't know what to think. A few things crossed his mind. Did I do something wrong? Did I mess up? Did he find my Colaberry transcripts? Jake's manager informed him that due to growing interest rates, they lost a few customers that affected the budget. He said Jake's position was more than likely going to be eliminated in 2 weeks. There was, however, one scenario that could save his job. There is a huge global vendor that just sent a project request to us and 4 other consulting companies. We have 48 hours to tell them where they should invest their marketing dollars and why. The company with the best strategy gets the contract, and it's massive enough and more than enough for Jake to keep his job. Jake's manager put him as the lead on the project and forwarded him the data set. With only 48 hours and Power BI being Jake's expertise, he felt his best way to tell the story of the data was to first create a dashboard. That's exactly what he did. He focused on the KPIs and analyzing them in different dimensions, such as time dimension, using month, quarter, and year, category and subcategory, segment and market, and of course, location. Now, I need everyone on the call to pay close attention as I explain how this dashboard is read. We will need help. We will need your help in analyzing the data and finding the insights. Let's focus on the top left chart. Here we see sales per month by month. All right, so this bar matches to the left axis. So here you can see January has close to 500,000 sales per month. Somebody take yourself off of mute and tell me the 2 lowest selling months.
February and April.
February and April. Absolutely. Now, who could tell me what the 2 highest selling months are?
November and December.
Now, let's move on to sales year over year. What is sales year over year? Now, here we have an example of, we're just filtering by September of 2014 and September of 2013. September 2013 came first. Sales were 258,000 that month. And the next year, September 2014, sales rose to 328,000. Year over year calculation says new amount, which is September 2014, 328K, minus the 258K divided by 258K times 100 gives us a sales year over year of about 27% for September. You can see where the lines are plotted on the right axis. So you can see that's about 27%, okay? So that's how year over year is calculated for 1 year, but let's look how it's calculated for multiple years. So here I have 2011 all the way through 2014. So in 2011, sales for September was 213, and then it went down to 192K. That was a negative 10% increase. And that's why you see year over year for September 2012 at a negative 10%, because it went from 213 to 192. Then it went from 192K to 258K, which was an increase of 34%. And then it went from 258K to 328K, which was about a 27% increase. If you are looking at multiple years of your year over year, you're going to average the year over years. And from 2011 to 2014, the overall year over year increase was 12% per year. So what that means is sales increased 12% per year in September, okay? So now we want to zoom back in, or let's look at categories and subcategories. The same rules apply, okay? The bar is matched with the left axis. The lines relate to the right axis. So let's go up a level. And let's look at, we already know, we can see technology brought in between 250 and 300K. Okay, we already know that. We know year over year was lease and furniture. But now let's look at our other two KPIs. We have gross profit margin. Gross profit margin is what percentage is profit. Okay, so here you can see for technology, gross profit margin, if we look at the right axis, was about 15%. So that means for every $100 we spent, we get about 15% $15 as profit. Look at furniture. Furniture has a much lower gross profit margin. That means we aren't making as much on furniture. It's down to about 7%, 6%. Okay, so every $100 we spend on furniture, we're only making $6. Okay, and then you can see office supplies is around 15%. Then we look at discount. Discount is important because how much are we giving away? Of course, we give discounts to incentivize sales, okay, but you can't give away too much discount. As we can see with furniture, it's giving away the highest discount up towards 15%. But look at the gross profit margin is the lowest at 7%. Could it be that we are giving away too many discounts? So now it's time to analyze multiple dimensions. All right, so let's take a step back. Now, usually when we think about multiple dimensions, we think about some type of sci-fi movie where people are entering a different world, like Stranger Things on Netflix. But actually in data, a dimension is simply a collection of reference information about a measurable event. We are measuring these sales events throughout the KPIs or the key performance indicators. The dimensions are attributes that describe what's happening. Now, if we take a closer look at the category subcategory table and we look at copier, okay? We're looking at copiers right now. Just by what we know so far, we can tell that copiers bring in roughly about 85K a month, okay? If we look at where the lines are, remember the lines relate to the right axis. If we can look at this, we can see that gross profit margin and sales year over year are right around 20%. Our discount that we're giving on copiers is roughly around 18%. We can see that just by looking at the bar and the lines. Now, when we click on that, we now make a selection in the data, and all of those KPIs that we saw are now our main KPIs because copiers are selected. So here we have, I told you it was around 85K a month. Gross profit margin and sales were around 20, okay, and discount around 11%. We can look across the different dimensions, right? So when I click on copiers and copiers is now selected, I can look on here and see what is my highest selling month for October, or I'm sorry, for copiers. You can see that it's October because the bar is higher. Okay, so copiers is selected. October's is the highest bar. The lowest selling month, as you can see, is February. Now, let's take a look at our year over year. Somebody tell me what the highest year over year month is for copiers.
March.
March, exactly. And somebody tell me what the lowest is.
May.
May, absolutely. So now you can see that sales year over year is kind of fluctuating, but you can see that gross profit margin is not really moving. It's like a flat line. Discount is like a flat line. So what does that mean? That means that this dimension doesn't have effect on these KPIs. That means discount is not affected by which month the discount is given because they probably give the same discounts all year round. And the gross profit margin is not affected by the month either because they give the same, they make the same margins each month. Now, if I move down to my segment dimension, I can see that consumer segment has more sales, okay, by the bar, okay? Consumer sales has more sales, but the highest trending year over year, home office is moving up, okay? Our year over year is over 30%. So that means that while consumer has the highest sales, home office has the highest acceleration. Now let's look at market. We can see that Asian Pacific market has the highest sales. Now, who can tell me who is accelerating, which market is accelerating more in terms of year over year?
US.
US.
The US, exactly. Because we want to do better than, and look, we looked at what was the worst. We can look at what was the worst month for year over year, and we can look at what was the best month for year over year. You can see that December was the worst month. 2012, 336, it went down to 277, and then you have 241. And in January, you can see that, boom, it had a big increase of almost 90%, 34 and 33. And here's the totals. All right, so now we are going to look at what insight we need to get to clients for them to make the best decision. All right, so now, number one, I want to look at year over year. We already understand as a movement. Are we accelerating or are we declining? A company's job is to accelerate. They want all their products to consistently sell more, okay? And that's our year over year. So if we're trying to find areas of improvement, we want to find out where the year over year is the lowest, okay? And then if we can find where it's the lowest, then we can analyze that data and figure out how we can get that year over year up. Our first one that we want to analyze is the US, because we can see our sales year over year is the lowest in the US in terms of market. So we're going to go ahead and select that. Now, when we look at our US segment, when we look at our months, we want to see what are the lowest months. Okay, the lowest months means the greatest area of improvement. So we can see December is low in months. We can see March is low in months. September is low. Okay, let's move over to our products. Okay, we can see machines we can see bookcases is low. If we look over to our segment, we can see consumer is low. So these are our greatest areas for improvement when looking at the US segment. So now the question is, where do we allocate the marketing dollars? So we have to ask ourselves three questions. What is the business objective? Where can our marketing dollars have the biggest effect? And which dimensions have the biggest opportunities to improve? So now, back to, we just spoke about our US market. So US market is actually 26% of total sales. Year over year is 10.2, okay? What we've done here is we've gone through, if you can look at, we have it filtered by US, and we look at the months and we see what are the greatest opportunities of improvement, okay? We have March, we have April, and then we have December, which are all the lowest ones. Okay, the first number is what percentage of total sales is this? And then what is the year over year? Okay, in March, US market only has a year over year of 2.82. The average is around 13%. So with the 2.82, we have an ability to raise more. Okay, the top segment, consumer, 13% of sales. Yet we only have a 5% year over year. So when you're asking, where do we spend our marketing dollars? One is the US market. And not only US market, because that's so broad, but in the US market, specifically on these months, specifically on this segment, specifically on these products. That's where you're going to get your biggest change. Let's keep it moving. Let's look at our time dimension. Somebody tell me what the two lowest year over years are, the two lowest months for year over year. Somebody tell me.
May and June.
May and June. So if we select May and June, so when we select May and June, and then we analyze it across markets, we have May and June selected, we can see that copiers, phones, and machines have the greatest room for improvement in terms of year over year sales. The company's objective is to have all of their products moving in the right direction. That means high year over year. So our greatest chance of improving in May and June is with these three products. And then here you see them over to the right. What percentage of total sales are they? And what's their current year over year value? We look at our segment and we see consumer segment has the biggest area to improve. We look at market and we see Asian Pacific has the greatest area to improve. Now we move over to our last and final insight, which is our product tables. So we click on tables right here. And the reason I clicked on tables is because you can see the year over year is very low for this product. It's the lowest of all of the products. But when I click on it, I can see that, oh, January, February, low months. Consumer segment, low months. US, Tables don't do as well. All right, January, February, actually corporate, and then Asian Pacific. You can see those have the lowest ones. Those are the greatest areas for improvement. And so while tables only make up 6.1% of sales, they have a low year over year at 5.9%. And if we were going to target advertisements for products, then we would want to focus on June, August, and December. If we wanted to focus on tables and we're looking across segments, we would want to focus on corporate and top market Asian Pacific. Jake's boss came to him and said, you know how big this moment is, and I think you were very prepared, but you need to be so focused that if you were driving 80 miles per hour with the window down, all you should hear is your heartbeat. It was at that moment Jake knew he was indeed ready for the moment. Jake ended up nailing the presentation. The company got the contract. Jake kept his job, and he was promoted after 6 months. Everybody take your cells off of mute and give me a whoop, whoop. So, what'd you guys think? Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned a lot. I mean, that's the real thing, is to learn a lot. So now is time to go into how I came up with that video, how I crafted it. Why did I use the stories and the wording and everything that I put into it, I'm about to talk to you about now, okay? So by now, you should already be going through the Colaberry Network project for telling a story. That's where this video is located. And in step 4 of this Colaberry Network project, you will also have a video here that I created. It's about a 30-minute video. It's going to walk you through the storytelling process as it is in Colaberry Network. It is crucial that you watch that video first, or else you're not it's going to be missing some pieces, okay? So make sure you watch that first. It's on step 4, as you can see. Let's move on down here where you see the vetted flows. Now, vetted flow is basically, you start off with the recipe, okay? Your story is your recipe, all right? Remember I told you I was gonna give you the story, give you all of the components of the story that I used. So now you can take that recipe, dissect that recipe, figure out how to get not the same recipe, a similar recipe, onto your project, okay? And that's what the goal here is. So stories can change the world. See which problems you can solve by combining different story tactics, all right? So a vetted flow just means it's already been proven. It's a common strategy that companies use. I think that as you go through this, you'll start seeing, books and movies. They all follow these strategies, okay? So I wanted to choose a vetted strategy this time. Of course, you can make up your own. You can pick your own 5 cards and put together your own story. But I wanted to start off with a vetted flow. So I chose stories that explain. I knew that I was going to be doing a lot of teaching. I want to teach you guys how to read the dashboard. That was very important. I wanted to, show how to create the story. So when I was reading through the cards, explain just made more sense to me for this story. And you may go through your story and say, I think this is more of a motivation play or more of a convince play, right? So everything is predicated on your data, your story, what makes sense. It's not going to be the same every single time, all right? Stories that explain. All right, so think about your recipe as all of the ingredients that you need to make this meal, okay? Or in your case, story about your project. So here you can see stories that explain. Bring your strategy to life. Show why those abstract statements matter in the real world. How many people understand the strategic direction of their organization? How many care? Most strategy documents sit in the digital equivalents of a dusty shelf, but your strategy is actually an attempt to bring clarity to chaos and choose your path through a challenging world. That sounds like a great story waiting to be told. Okay, so this is the story of the explain, okay? And I'm gonna use 5 cards to tell this story. Order and chaos, good and evil. What is it about? RollsRoyce Moment and story hooks. Okay, notice they all have little icons in front of them. That's in the sections that you can find those specific cards. But when you put these cards together, it will help you create a story that explains something very well in a good story. So I'm gonna kind of show you the next 5 slides so you can see order, chaos, good, evil. What's it about? RollsRoyce Moment, story hooks. Those are my next slides. Look, order and chaos, good and evil. What's it about? RollsRoyce Moment and story hooks. Now, what I suggest for you is when you do find your recipe or you choose your recipe that you're going to use, lay those things out, like open them up in their own browser. Okay, so you don't have to keep flipping back and forth. You want everything. Like I noticed when I was creating this story, I had my Word document open, and then I had a bunch of internet files open to where I could quickly go back to each part of the story and try to add different pieces in. Okay, I'm adding, because of this, I'm going to add it into this story, and I'm looking at my Word document. So it's good to have everything laid out so you can all see it as you're constructing this story. And then you want to, of course, have you a document out. You can take notes in the paper, but you kind of want to, what is my presentation going to be? You got to write that out. You got to kind of script that out and create the story. It doesn't have to be word for word, right? But you got to know about what you want to talk about, and you got to know exactly what you want to do. So let's get started with order and chaos. So order and chaos. Show how your project can impose order on a chaotic mess or disrupt a system that's too rigid. Every story contains 3 elements: the known, the unknown, and the hero. The known world is an orderly, safe, but restricted. Okay, the unknown world is chaotic, risky, but full of potential. The hero, that's you, must explore both worlds and find the right balance between chaos and order. Okay, so we move on to the order part. Order, describe the known world, the client you're working with, their existing product, and the user. So if you remember with my story, Jake had just gotten his job from Colaberry, right? And so Jake, he's making more money than he's ever made before. He's doubled his income. He's thinking about things like generational wealth, and he's searching, looking for, properties and things to buy. So that's the good world, right? Jake is feeling real good. That's order, okay? Chaos hits when he's about to lose his job, okay? He's about to lose his job. That is the unknown world. Like, who wants to go into that world? Nobody wants to go into that unknown world of being unemployed, okay? How does chaos disrupt order? Okay, the interest rates had gone up. It affected the company. That actually happened to Addie's company, my wife, right? Thursday nights. She works for a mortgage company. She's a BI manager there now. They started laying people off, okay? Because nobody's buying mortgages with the interest rates going up. The activity's going down a lot, okay? So you can use different things that are happening, especially things that people can relate to. You definitely want to use that in your story. How does chaos disrupt order? Okay, I could be fired from my job that I just got. You were the hero. How did you respond? Okay, the whole project is based on, the application that he created to get the results to end up getting the project. Okay, so this is how I kind of put the order and chaos into the storyline. And it's not like I came to order and chaos first. I read through all my cards first. I think that's very important, is you want to read through all of them first. Don't just try to jump in. Oh, it says do this. Let me jump in and throw this. Because you got to be more strategic. You got to let the plan kind of marinate in your head. It's not like you're going to go through this. Oh, write this down. No, I was going through mine. I would look through all of the cards first, and then I didn't even start with order and chaos. I started with RollsRoyce Moment. That's actually the first card I started with, okay? Even though order and chaos is first, I read through them all. RollsRoyce is the one that I felt like I needed to start off with, and I'll tell you that later why. But that's how I integrated the order and chaos into the project. So let's move on. Now we have good versus evil which is the next ingredient to my story. Good and evil. Tap into strong feelings of right and wrong with your audience. Bring a moral conflict into your story. In a simple story, you set up a battle between right versus wrong with you on the side of the angels. But you can also show tough choices when two rights collide, or we must choose the lesser of two evils. We love this kind of complex storytelling, which is why Breaking Bad won so many awards. Now, this storytelling tactic cards that I actually purchased just to figure out a way to improve everyone's communication skills, everyone's storytelling skills, okay? I can do it. I don't know how to do it. I learned a lot from this. And this guy has learned a lot from looking over thousands of books, and he's just, this is what he, his life, and dedicated his life to. So you have the different versions of good and evil, which you have suggestions here. Care versus harm, fairness versus cheating, liberty versus oppression, authority versus subversion, loyalty versus betrayal, purity versus filth. I actually think this was the card I used the least. Okay, I had more of a care versus harm if I were to categorize it. There was this, situation where, he could lose his job. So mine was kind of more care harm, but not really kind of. Okay. So that's how I kind of use this card, probably the least used card in my story. All right, moving on. What is it about? Me. So what are you working on? You. Don't be that person. How can it be so hard to answer this simple question? Sometimes you're so absorbed in your idea, you don't know where to start explaining it to someone new. It's called the curse of knowledge. And some experts get it really bad. But don't worry, you escape the curse with a well-told story. Okay? Now, this is like, when you need an elevator pitch or a short summary, at work for an email, or you put something on your cover letter or online profile, you can use these approaches. I specifically focused on the personal benefit strategy, okay, or approach. No matter how abstract or technical your work is, somewhere down the line, there's a person in the real world who benefits. Ultimately, I'm trying to help X achieve Y. This is part of the wider problem I'm solving for. So ultimately, we were trying to help him keep his job, okay? The whole story was revolved around helping to save his job. And in the course, we went through this journey, okay? But ultimately, we were trying to help him save his job, right? We wanted to help him save his job. And that's the gist of everything. All right, remember I told you guys I used the RollsRoyce moment first. I actually stole a little bit of it. I made it my own, but it was basically stolen. So I know you guys will recognize a piece of this because I use it at the beginning, I use it at the end. Cruising at 60 miles per hour, the loudest noise inside the Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. Right? So this was like a huge marketing ad that really, really did well for Rolls-Royce back in the 60s. Okay. And I think it's for a lot of reasons, but one is like, if you can picture yourself, riding in a car 60 miles an hour, all this noise and wind and all of that, but rather you can hear an electric clock. Wow, that immediately kind of gives you this calm, like, oh, okay, you feel it. So that's why I tried to steal some of it. Of course, mine wasn't as good, but I didn't run a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign for it either. Rolls-Royce ran an advert with this advertisement with this headline in a U.S. magazine in 1960. Next year, Ford spent millions on an ad campaign promising cars as quiet as the Rolls-Royce. In 1980, my dad told me that Rolls-Royce story, and I still remember it today. Why is this ad so memorable, and how can your story have a Rolls-Royce moment? So, British advertising genius wrote this ticking clock headline for Rolls-Royce after spending days trawling through engineering reports. His lesson for storytellers: do your homework. All right, that's why the ad worked. That's his message to storytellers. So why is it so good? It's a vivid moment. In just a few words, he gave us a rich sensory movie we could play in our heads. What's the vivid moment you can describe? That's what I was asking myself, right? So I wanted to capture kind of the heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. When can you hear a heartbeat? When you're nervous, right? You never pay attention to your heartbeat any other time. So I kind of took a little bit of what I had here, kind of twisted a little bit, put it in our situation, okay? And that's what I went with. And that was my intro, right? That was what I started with, and then ultimately what I ended with. So my RollsRoyce moment was like at the beginning, and I was like, okay, I want to catch the audience right away, okay? This one small moment stands for the whole. It tells us Rolls is a precision engineering company that pays attention to detail, and it's widely relatable. I've never driven a Rolls-Royce, but I can tell you that this one made a hell of a racket cruising at 60 miles an hour. So some car you had made a lot of noises, which is most cars, right? So that's why it's so relatable, is because we kind of know what it's been like to be in a car going 60 miles an hour, okay? It's loud. And so to kind of be able to hear a ticking clock where you kind of, you got to kind of quiet down to hear a ticking clock. And so it just kind of puts the whole story together and really makes the audience think. And these are the things that help your story become memorable. And the last one is story hooks. You wanna keep on bringing them in, okay? Keep on reeling them in. Crafting a compelling hook at the start of your story will keep us listening to the end, right? We talked about Jake. We talked about him, graduating. We talked about, making it through Colaberry, getting a new job, going through the journey, and then ultimately helping to save his job and help a company utilize their marketing budget. You might have the best story in the world, but it's no use if you can't get people to listen, to click on a link or open your email. You need a hook, something that makes us want to find out more. Shall I let you into the secret? Do you want to hear about the secret I got? So this guy looked at over 1,000 TED Talks to see how their titles hook our attention, and he spotted some things. Number one is questions. What happens when you ask a question? We try to answer it in our head, and then we stick around to hear the answer. If you notice in the presentation, I asked a few questions, right? Because I was about to start explaining something that can get pretty sophisticated, and I didn't want to lose the audience, right? So I'm asking questions to make sure I'm walking through it slow enough to where everybody, or at least the majority of people, can understand and really take away what I'm trying to explain to them, which is showing you how to analyze a dashboard of this caliber. Unexpected. When everyone zigs, you zag. Why you'll fail is an attention-grabbing take on how to succeed, right? If I come to you and say, hey, I got the answers to succeed, versus if I come to you and say, here's why you won't fail, or here's why you will fail, you're gonna be more compelled to the second one, right? So, because it's unexpected, right? It's unexpected. Everyone thinks that they're gonna pass, right? It's unexpected to fail. Relatable, I'm just gonna skip ironies, but relatable, writing about you, we, and us makes your reader feel more involved. Is this you in the video? Is a guaranteed attention hook, right? I gotta see if I'm in the video. Is that you? Sure, that person looks a lot like you. Even if it's not you, you want to go see the person that looks a lot like you, right? So the way I wanted to make the story relatable is, if you guys notice, I said, hey, Jake is you. Okay, Jake is you when you get your job. So now you're like, oh, shoot, the unknown, relatable. What's going to happen when I get onto my job, right? Relatable in the sense of I'm the main character. Oh, I better stick around and find out what happens to the main character, right? Knowledge, your expertise made simple. Story hook, rules, explainers, life hacks, okay? I explain how to read the dashboard. I explain how to get so much information. See, when we have you guys build out these projects, we have you build them in such a way that it is just spitting out the information, okay? You click on one thing, more stories appear. It's like hundreds and hundreds of stories inside that data. And the way we specifically build those dashboards and reports, or even if you're an ETL and you're doing year over year for your KPIs, the way you build it, we really make the data pop out. And I kept seeing, even with you guys creating these dashboards that tell you so much information, a lot of people going through, had no idea how powerful it is. How powerful just clicking on one thing and watching probably, 60, 70 numbers all change on the fly, all give you a new message, a new picture, right? It is so powerful. And so you already have a mechanism that makes it easy for you to get the insight out. Remember, the insight is what the companies want. Like, what is my data saying? If you wrap up the entire data analytics program, it's about insights, okay? It's about gathering the insights. You can't get to the insights until you can get to the data. What do you need to get to the data? You need ETL. Okay, if the data's over there, no way you can get insights with the data over here. Okay, you do that, right? Well, maybe you need to maneuver the data, SQL. Okay, the data's not going to just come in and just lay itself on your lap and just make it easy. No, you got to know how to configure. You got to know how to put it in the model, right? You got to understand the different architectures. And then the reporting. How can I put this data in a way that it tells me the story? Not only am I analyzing the KPI, but I'm analyzing over some different time period. And it doesn't have to be year over year. It could be month over month. It could be week over week. It depends on the business. What makes most sense to your business? Okay. It could be month to date versus previous month. Okay. It's all about how the business, you keep it open, you keep it flexible. It's about the business, okay? But you're going to be looking at KPIs and you're going to be tracking them over time, okay? Year over year, month over month, quarter over quarter. These are time tracking mechanisms. They allow you to look at something over time, okay? You have to look at things over time to follow the KPI. There's one thing just to report on the KPI, but then you got to follow, you got to track it. Are we doing better than last week? Are we doing better than yesterday? Is this month look better than last month? Because if it's not, then I need to do something about it. I need to keep that KPI trending in the right direction. All right, so where I brought out the expertise. I really wanted to teach you guys that inside of this video. So my video is longer than yours will be. Yours should only be 5 to 7 minutes, okay? Mine was longer because I had multiple objectives there. Yes, I'm trying to teach you how to create a story, but I was also wanting to teach you how to analyze the data, and that took a little longer. So your video is 5 to 7 minutes, mine was longer, and that's the reason why. All right, and then our last one is super laxatives. Biggest, fastest, newest. We all know somebody that uses these words a lot. Okay, while smallest, slowest, oldest, all right, provoke curiosity. So you blowing things up out of proportion. You are making it seem bigger than it is. You're exaggerating. You're using words like, oh, the best. Let me see, right? So those things spark curiosity. So the last thing that I would like to show you is that here is my Word document, okay? This is what I used when I was preparing my story, okay? So I'm not gonna go through it in detail, but I'm just gonna kind of show you kind of how, you don't have to do yours exactly like this, but I'm telling you, I'm giving you a finished solution, okay? We're reverse engineering. It's up to you to reverse engineer. I'm giving you a solution that worked for me. You get to see me present. You get to get into my mind, understand how I did it, how I followed the system, okay? And you follow these same exact steps to create your story, okay? And it's just like going on the internet looking for a solution. It's just a little bit more complex of a solution, okay? And now you got to take what you learned here and then you got to apply it to your project. So I came in. Remember I told you I started off with the RollsRoyce Moment. And then that's where I had put this down right here. And then I added in it was at that moment, Jake knew you know how it goes, right? So I want everybody thinking that. And then I had the, color slide each time I was gonna skip to the next page because it just helped me kind of, I'm glancing at this while I'm doing the presentation. So I want to be able to know that, oh, this content right here is for the second slide. Right. So just kind of not word for word, but kind of plotting out what I'm going to say. You put the story down, you put these details down so you can make sure that you get all of these elements. Like as I went through the different cards, I read through the card, oh, you need to add this. So I would go scroll down my story and say, okay, let me add that in here. Or let me add that detail that I didn't mention before, but it coincides with this. So I'm going to go ahead and add that piece into this part of the story, right? So you end up putting the blueprint down, but then after you get through that first draft, you want to go back to your storytelling cards and you want to make sure all of those different elements are added into your story. So the first one you come up with is definitely not going to be what you end with. You got to practice it. You got to, kind of just construct the story. Understand where you're going to click. You should already know what you're going to click, what you're going to say, what you're going to talk about. Okay, you should have an idea what the KPIs will say when you click on them. Okay, you should understand when you're about to tell a joke. Okay, and what point you're trying to make. And as you can see right here, I'm kind of walking myself through the story. Okay, talking about his job before, and I was trying to make it relatable to you guys. So that means that, he was a student at Colaberry. He's dreaming of his new job. He just got his new job. He represents you. Okay, here he has now we're moving into the business and we're starting to talk about, now notice when I talk about KPIs, I'm not saying, oh, here were my KPIs. Here's my data dictionary, right? I'm kind of introducing it into the story. It's part of the storyline. And here I'm engaging with the audience. I already knew what questions I was going to ask them, right? I already knew exactly what points I wanted to make. I knew based on my slides what I was going to be talking about. And look, explain singles. I already know what I'm going to say there. So no need for me to write it down. And I could just look at the picture and then I could kind of wing it and know what I'm going to say. Okay. Same for the multiple slide. I already understood how I was going to explain it. I mean, I copied and pasted all of the numbers there and made it self-explanatory. So no need for me to write a script for that. I could just, when I get there, I already know what I'm going to say because I'm just reading the data off of the screenshots. Here, we're going back to the charts. Notice I had a flow that I wanted to go through. I knew exactly which flow I wanted to go through. I talked about the year over year. I gave year over year a lot of time because the concept of year over year, people think they know it, but to have it explained to you really lights up a lot of light bulbs in your head and say, oh, now I understand it. And then I tested them by asking them which one has the highest year over year. And then I knew I was going to start talking about gross profit margin and discount. And notice I gave that example with the mid category and was like, maybe this gross profit margin is lower because we're giving too much of a discount, right? That's something that people can relate to. And if they're paying attention, they can really understand how that could happen. It makes a whole lot of sense. And when you're doing that, when you're constantly doing that in the presentation, all you're doing is keeping more people engaged. Because if they're able to follow along, if they start and you're boring, you're not able to capture their attention or even get them thinking about something, they're going to think about something else, which is probably going to be their phone. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to start texting. They're going to start doing something else, watching TV, whatever, tending to the kids. But if you can grab their attention, then you got to keep it. So here we're going into a different part of it. I wanted to talk about, different dimensions. When I started about dimensions, I talked about Stranger Things and how people usually think about, multi-dimensional, cross-dimensional. I knew that that could be like a boring topic, dimension, and we're in the second dimension and the first dimension. People get lost real fast talking about something like that. So I wanted to bring things up that people were a little bit aware of, Stranger Things, Netflix, right? And then kind of roll that in there, right? Okay, this is how it works. And then I made sure I had an example, and then I asked a question to make sure people could follow what I was doing. And then showing that multi-dimensional, how when you select on one dimension, how the KPIs respond and all of the other dimensions is like really how you find those patterns in the data. You find out that some product has a correlation with some KPI, but only in certain months. I mean, you can get really, really detailed by using this system that's been set up for you. And then to be able to extract that information out into a way where you're not a robot. You're not like, oh, this is 5% year over year, and they don't even know what you're talking about, right? But if you could say, hey, sales from last year to this year, hey, they went up 5% in September. Okay, that's something you could relate to. Sales year over year, what exactly, So I wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. And so I had to do really, really good at explaining it to make sure that I'm losing as little people as possible. And then when I get to my insight, I spent so much time documenting the insight that I could just read from it. Then I have my closing point right here, which was how I closed it out. That's it, guys. That is the whole thing, okay? I spent a lot of time on this project, okay? The first time, I remember when we were doing our videos, when we first built the video feedback system, or we were just creating videos and having people watch them, so we didn't have to look in the mirror and constantly say the same thing. Tell me about yourself story. That was in the mirror, guys. Like before, back in the day when we didn't have any automation, you say it, or you tell your mentor, you do it, you rattle off this 5-minute story, and they're like, do it again. Or, oh, I like this part, I don't like this part. Tell them do it again. So that's a lot of time, okay? So when we first started rolling out the videos, we were like, okay, we need to get them creating videos. Guess who had to start the videos, right? I grabbed up some mentors. We got together, came. Of course, you had to put together your answers and definition example more. And then we all cranked out a bunch of videos, okay? And then now the students had something to go off of, okay? And then they start creating them. And then as more start coming in, the good ones, they go to the top, the bad ones, they go to the bottom, okay? And then pretty soon, you got nothing but a whole bunch of videos at the top. You got a great selection at the top, okay? Always, in all questions, okay? Same here. This is the first one. Was the video perfect? Not at all, not even close. There's a lot of areas I could have improved. I could have practiced more. There was I made a few mistakes in there, right? That's cool because now I got a baseline, right? I have a baseline. I know where up is. I know if I do worse, I know what that looks like because I have my baseline. So now it's up to you guys to now take what I have, deconstruct it. I've walked you through everything, okay? Deconstruct it, apply that same system to create your story. Follow the same path that I used, okay? And hopefully you guys start to create presentations that are better than mine. And it will happen, okay? It will happen. People get a little bit more creative. People try a little bit more things. We also have a place in the app, in your student app, okay, under network, we have project videos. And we tell you, hey, go watch a few of these. So, and you rate them too. So same thing that happened with the videos. Now, as you guys create these videos, you rate them. Some go up, some go down. The good ones start to get to the top. Now everybody has a bunch of examples of how to create great presentations. And once that happens, you go through there, new person comes along. watches 4 or 5 videos, they know all of the things not to do. They know all of what makes a good presentation. And so now it's easier for them to create their own presentation. Okay. And then now that means that everybody that goes through this program, if you spend the time, because putting together this presentation was not easy. Okay. I've been in this field for 20 years. It still took me hours to do this. Okay. But if this is the presentation when you get onto your job that gets people thinking about you from a management perspective, because you explain the concept of what y'all's inner workings of your system, you explained it in a way that everybody was super impressed. Like, that's what I'm talking about, Rockstar status. These are the type of skills that are not common across the group. And when you have them, you stand out. Okay? So you won't see basic people putting time into something like this. Okay? You guys are working towards Rockstar status. I hope you are happy about that. I hope you take this video and make the most out of it. I enjoyed preparing it for you. Now take my lead, create you a great story so it can now enter into this library and just uplift the whole Colaberry community. I'll see you guys later.